So fun fact, I actually had a dream last night about something that happens in the fighting pits later on, which I won't ruin for those who haven't read the books. But anyway, Unbowed, Unbent, Unbroken, which, you know, it's really starting to show. I mean, I don't want to get too bogged down to this because I want to talk more about this when I do like my overview at the end of the season, saying how I felt the season as a whole. But I feel like this season's really suffering from the Spider-Man 3 syndrome and that there's too much going on. And I get that a lot of this stuff is necessary, but in the sense there's so much going on that nothing's really getting the development it should. Like, we're getting glimpses and peaks of stuff, but the writers, because there's so much going on, the writers have to streamline everything and strip it down to its bare bones. So, like, all the little details that made it interesting and fleshed out aren't there. And a lot of that's, again, in case you don't know, they're taking two-book George R. R. Martin, the stuff after Storm of Swords. George R. R. Martin was writing the next book, and he realized there was way too much stuff in it, so he's like, all right, I'm going to split it into two books. One set of books is going to focus on King's Landing and the areas near that, like the southern areas like Dorne, Bravos. And the other book is going to focus on the Wall and everything going on in the east, like Daenerys and Tyrion and stuff like that. Which worked out really well. He was able to get it all into depth. It was also very focused. Here, it's just very dry. And again, you're doing 2 books in 10 episodes, and I really feel a writer's straining that. And it really shows throughout all the stories. Like, Arya's stories, it's just more of Arya cleaning the bodies. And, like, Arya hasn't really done anything. And in the book, there's so much more to it. Like, there's a lot of training she goes through. At one point, she goes into... I mean, she might still spend the book. She has to go into town to run missions. That's not really much of a spoiler. Spoiler would be if I tell you what the missions were. She goes into the face there. It's almost like the writers like blew all their budget on the establishing shots of Bravos. And then not only did they blow their budget, but then they also blew it on the House of Black and White. They don't have any finger left. So yeah, it's just Arya walking around the House of Black and White, and she's what happened to the tough badass I'm gonna go in and kill some people, Arya? Like, I miss that. So anyway, Sansa's story is completely veered from the books. In the book, both her and Littlefinger are still in the Vale. But here, Littlefinger, he's being himself. He's playing both sides, which it'll be interesting to see where it goes. It seems like the writers are trying to have a lot of storylines converge on Winterfell, which I guess works. And Cersei's being mean, which, although it's not as... In the books, it's very introspective and effective. Here, it's not. Ser Jorah and Tyrion. This whole season has just been Tyrion moving to Meereen, and it's that way in the books, but in the books, it's not just, okay, we're going to cut to Tyrion still traveling towards Meereen. There was stuff going on, and I need to pour myself a glass of water for a second. Sorry, it is just way too hot in here. Like, I will pass it. So anyway, the thing about Tyrion is that in the book, there's a bunch of stops he makes along the way. And, like, he goes to all these cities, he talks to all these people. There's this character he encounters named Penny, who's another dwarf, and there's a lot of banter. Point is that Tyrion's given a lot of characters to work off of. And that's what makes Tyrion interesting. The banner he has, like stuff between, like in the previous season, we had him and Joffrey, him and Tywin, him and Cersei. Here he's not really given anyone to work off of, and it just sort of makes the story dull. Again, I apologize for the interruption. It's just so hot in here. But anyway, Tyrion finally gets captured by slavers, which happens in the book, but it happens, like, what they're doing, what he does before he gets... How the slavers capture them is different than in the books, but seems like we're more or less heading in the same place. But yeah, they're really just cutting a straight line to Daenerys, and here. There was not enough of the Jaime and Bronn rescue mission. That's like my favorite plot line. It's not in the book, but it's a fun thing to give someone to do. It's a fun thing to make Dorne more interesting. But yeah, it was there for a few minutes. And I'm bummed that they got there as fast as they did, because I want to see more of that storyline. And they're really trimming Dorne down. Like, it's just been a couple pieces. But the main focus of this story, and also this season, everything just seems to be converging on Winterfell. Where here we got what I'm going to call the White Wedding. And interesting fact, I probably said this in an earlier vlog, but if you haven't read the books, in the books, Sansa is still in the Vale. So you're probably wondering, well, if Sansa's in the Vale, who is he married? Well, in the books, Bolton is supposed to be marrying Arya, but here's the thing, like, Jaime was in charge of sending Arya up, and he didn't send Arya. He sent a girl who looked like Arya, but because, like, almost no one knows what Arya looks like, they just sort of assume this girl's Arya. And I'll be back in a second.